Hey everyone, Shinjoi here, and today I just wanted to bring you some general tips for the road class. The first one that I'm going to cover is going to involve the Razor Beast, and there's some confusion about the Razor Beast and the Greater Razor Beast, max levels for them, things of that nature. The Razor Beast, which you get at the very beginning when you're a ranger, as your pet, only levels till 30. Once you put 24 points into the ranger tree, 24 points into the ranger tree down here at the bottom, you get Greater Razor Beast. You also get Shadowfire, which is freaking awesome. I love that. But you get Greater Razor Beast. It will say, when you get this pet, max level of 30. Which is incorrect. The max level of the Greater Razor Beast is 60. He levels as you level. You get a level, he gets a level. You get a level, he gets a level. Yada, yada, yada. See how that works? Alright, we got that cleared up. Second thing is people say that the Razor Beast, man, I'm sexy, look at that pose. Okay. Been seeing this a lot in channels and in chat and in some various forum discussions that the Greater Razor Beast can't tank for shit. Yes, he can. You just got to know how to do it. You can't just start off unloading on somebody and expect him to tank. Now, this little beetle right here, he's going to go down pretty quick. What most people probably do is they run up on a mob and just start shooting. Alright? And all of a sudden, they might notice that they're pulling threat. And so they're like, oh, this dude sucks. Well, one of two things. By default, Razor Quills is turned off. It will not activate automatically. So you need to go on ahead and right click it, and that puts it on to go off on cooldown every time. That right there will help keep the threat on your pet there, on the Greater Razor Beast, as you go up. The other thing is if you have just phenomenal gear for your level, to where you're cranking out insane DPS. You've got all blue and purple gear, you know, on your level 40, and you're having problems with your pet keeping threat. What you need to do is when you send your pet in, you need to give him a couple of seconds to actually build that threat up. Let him move in. Give you, you might want to throw a rejuve on him. Give him a count of, 4 or 5, and then start unloading, and just taking the mob out. Let him build up a little threat. I mean, he's a tank, and just like any other tank, you gotta give him a few seconds to build up some threat. Or especially if you've got just phenomenal gear. And that's really the only time that you have to do it, is if you have just, you're extremely well geared or over geared for your level. That's the only time that you got to worry about it. Now at higher levels and in AoE situations, what you're going to have to do is send your pet in and make sure to use Divert Rage. So let's say this planar anomaly over here is a big bad guy, an elite or something like that. It's an AoE situation to where you got an elite and 2 or 3 other mobs around him. You want to send your pet in, hit the heal, hit Divert Rage, and now he's going to have aggro. And then you go on ahead and move in with your AoE. Because for the first 10 seconds, all of that threat that's generated by you and him goes to your pet. That includes the heal and any AoE damage that you do. And 90% of the time, that's going to be more than enough to keep all the mobs on your pet. You just gotta make sure that you keep the heal up on him, the rejuvenate. Because if you don't, he's gonna drop. You gotta keep that rejuvenate on him on cooldown. So every 8 seconds, which is basically allows you to go through one full rotation of builders and then finisher. And then you refresh, builders, finisher, refresh, builders, finisher, refresh. That's how you want to work it. If you're a bard, then of course you're going to have possibly have cadence that does party heals that you'll be using. If you're a tactician main, you've got AoE heal ability that you might want to put down for party and raid members as well. If you're a tactician, ranger. Alright guys, and for our last tip that I'm going to give you today is to become familiar with not only ranged or melee DPS role for the rogue. You need to be familiar with all the rogue's roles outside of maybe tanking, unless you like tanking. If you're going to be playing primarily DPS as a rogue, you need to be familiar with the support roles of the bard and the tactician. Even though the tactician, a lot of people think of it as a DPS, AoE DPS role, it is actually a support role. It does have a party heal worked in there. So you need to become familiar with those roles. If you primarily do ranged DPS, you need to be familiar with the bard class and the supports that it can use. And I would even recommend having a bard support role for when you go into dungeons or raids. You need to be familiar with the melee DPS classes. You should have a melee DPS role. Just like if you're primarily melee, you should have a ranged DPS role. There will be certain fights that ranged DPS will be able to do more damage to bosses than melee DPS. And some fights you might want to be primarily melee DPS because of what's going on at range. You don't want to be in that ranged role with doing a lot of kiting and stuff like that. So you need to be familiar, if you're DPS for a rogue, with not only your specific preference for DPS, whether that's melee or ranged, but the other type of DPS that can be done, and the support role. That's just going to make you a better player overall. It's going to be more helpful to your guild if you can fill that support role when needed, or if you can switch from melee to ranged DPS as needed depending upon the fight. And that's it for my rogue tips. I hope y'all enjoyed them. Hope you found it helpful. I hope it cleared up some things for y'all. Y'all have a good day.